Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk about how I created the illustrations for my book, Geisha Hands. So Geisha Hands was the third novel that I published, and this was a particularly special labor of love in that it is a fully illustrated novel, and I did all 47 illustrations myself. These were all hand-drawn via my Wacom tablet, which is a tablet that you have a stylus and you draw on it by hand, and then the artwork, it appears on the computer screen, and I utilize a program called SAI, S-A-I, and it's basically just a glorified Microsoft Paint, is really what it is. It's just a fancy Microsoft Paint. And that's part of why I like it, is that it's a very simple program. It doesn't really have any bells and whistles. It's just, here you go, you can draw and color to your heart's content. And that fits very well with the illustration art style that I utilize for this type of artwork that I do. For Geisha Hands, I did a combination of illustrations that were storybook scenes. So it was, I'm going to show you what this particular scene that's happening in the book, what that looks like. This is what the people look like, this is what the place looks like. It's very detailed, and it's a full scene with a background and everything. And then there were other illustrations where it's like, here's a thing, and it's meant to be educational, because the book is equal parts story and educational. I feel like pictures are just a great way to bridge that gap of understanding when learning about a culture that is so different from your own, that it's like, yeah, this is just what this thing looks like. So much easier. A picture is worth 1,000 words kind of thing. Some of them were charts, some of them were just like, here's just this thing, and it's just the thing floating in space, like there isn't a background or anything. It's just, here's this thing. And so one of the charts was like, here's all the instruments, like here's a bunch of traditional instruments that geisha regularly play for performances, or this is what this particular food item looks like, or this is what this type of hairstyle looks like, or here's a chart of this is how all the kimonos work, because they have very specific rules about you're only allowed to wear certain colors in certain seasons, and you're also only allowed to wear certain patterns for certain seasons. So I have whole charts in the book about what does that look like, what are all these different rules and stuff like that. That's why there's so many, why there's 47, is that it's equal parts, here's an explanatory picture, and here's a fun little like picture of the characters doing a thing. All of that took about 2 years for me to complete all 47 of those illustrations. That was largely because those illustrations took anywhere from 3 hours to over 20 hours to complete. For instance, the illustration that I did of the sakura mochi, it's like a little food item. That one took me like, I don't know, probably only about 2 or 3 hours to do. Whereas like the full scene where Katsu and Yuki are sitting and having tea together, that one took over 20 hours to completely draw and color and do all the highlighting and shadows and all the finishing and everything. Like definitely over 20 hours to do that. And so obviously the more simplistic drawings took less time, the more detailed drawings took more time, and then of course the drawings that had a lot of stuff took way more time. So like the chart of the kimonos, that took me, I actually did the math, it took me over 120 hours just to do that chart of all the different kimono patterns, because I literally individually drew every single one of those kimono patterns. Just this one, done, this one, and then I put them all together in Photoshop to make the chart. But yeah, I drew each and every one of those myself individually. It was a lot. It was a lot, y'all. Oh my god, it was a lot. But it was definitely a labor of love. I wanted to do that. That was like a big part of the book for me, was that I had people tell me, they're like, you should just not have all these illustrations and just have it be a book and send it to a publisher. And I was like, no, then it loses the entire purpose of what I'm trying to do with this book. Because they also told me I should take out all the translations and take out the glossary and all the definitions. And I was like, no, it's the whole point of the book. Let me live my life. I feel like it turned out exactly how I envisioned. I'm still so proud of this work. It was an absolute labor of love. From start to finish, it took me 5 years of work to complete, with the research, the writing, the illustrating, just everything. It was so much time and effort. And going forward, it also taught me a lot about how I'm going to illustrate more of my books going forward and what to expect, for expectations on how much time that's going to take me, how much effort that's going to take me, and how I want to organize the way I'm going to do illustrations for my books going forward. This was absolutely a big learning experience as well. And I also just had so much fun being able to share that with people, that it's like, not only do you get to read my perspective on this culture and these characters and these situations, but here's a handy dandy picture so that you can see exactly what I was envisioning. And it's such a special skill that I have, that not only can I write my own books, but I can also illustrate them too, that I feel like it's the purest way for me to be able to show people, this is the world that lives in my head. I can directly show you, this is what this world looks like. And I'm so excited to be moving forward with book 1 of my fantasy series, that is also going to be another illustrated novel. I'm already being bad and doing some illustrations before the manuscript's even done. I can't help myself. I've always just loved drawing and painting so much, and it means so much to me that I can combine these two passions of mine to be able to create these amazing works. And having a work like Geisha Hands, I feel like, is such an accomplishment, because I can go back and I can just look through that book and see those illustrations and be like, yeah, I did that. I remember sitting and drawing that. Like, I can even remember, for instance, the illustration that I did where the characters are doing the play and they're in full, like, Hime, like the Henin era dress with the 12-layer robes and everything. I remember I was watching, like, tiny houses while I was drawing that. Like, I remember sitting there and working on that drawing while, like, having, like, the tiny houses TV show on in the background, listening to it while drawing these drawings, and every once in a while looking over and be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I remember that. Like, I remember the TV shows I was watching while I was drawing those things. I remember, like, you know, the stuff that was going on in my life while I was drawing those things. Like, it's very solidified for me. It's almost like a time capsule that when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, yeah, I remember drawing that. I remember the place that I lived at the time, where I was sitting when I was drawing that, what did I have on in the background, who was over at my place, you know, just all of that. It's also a full experience for me, that it's like, oh yeah, this very specific time of my life when I was doing this. And I feel like that's a unique experience as a creative person, that our works are not just a look into the world that we're creating, but it's also this snapshot of our lives that as we're creating it, we're going to likely remember the parts of our life that were happening while we were creating this thing. And that also kind of it's part of the process. It's like stained into the pages. And while our readers will never be able to see that secret invisible ink of the story, we as the authors get to look back and see those things for ourselves. And it's like visiting an old friend. And of course, people are going to ask me, which one was your favorite to draw? And I will say, hands down, my favorite to draw was the one that actually took a long time to draw, because it had the most characters in the scene out of any of the other illustrations. It's the one where Yuki goes to the gallery. She sees pottery gallery. I had so much fun with that drawing, in that it was a big learning experience for me with figuring out, okay, I want this to have a lot of characters in it so that you can get the gist that it's like an event, it's a party, there's a lot of people there doing stuff, and having to figure out, I need the people to be doing things. Like, I can't just have them all just standing there like a popsicle stick. They need to look like, how do people at an event look when they're kind of standing there and walking around and stuff? Like, what does that look like? And I need to make sure that everybody's not just doing the same pose, to make it look natural. And then also to make it so that all the people look different. Like, I don't just copy pasta the same people around the room. Like, I need them to look different because people look different. So I had a lot of fun with figuring that out. And that was another learning experience for me, is how do you do an illustration with lots of different people in it and make it look like it makes sense? That was a really fun thing for me. And just also adding in all the fun little details that I did, that I'm like, I'm going to draw this pot and I'm going to make it look like this and I'm going to color it like this and it's going to be fun. All those teeny tiny details that, you know, most people probably aren't going to really notice or appreciate, but it's like, I know they're there and that makes me happy, kind of thing. So yeah, that one was my favorite. Definitely my favorite, hands down. I had a lot of fun with it. But I learned a lot and had fun with all of them. They were all good in their own ways, and I I'm so proud of that experience and that work that I put together. And going forward, it's definitely a big stepping stone for the artwork that I'm going to be doing in the very near future with my next novel. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.